Hello and welcome to the Testing Peers podcast number 9. Today the Peers Talk Passion is an idea inspired by an input from Philip Wong, who wrote to us following the CV episode to ask us how we show passion on our CVs. We appreciate any input from our listeners. With us tonight we have Russell, Simon, Chris and myself.
Well, David, I was going to say, actually, there's a groundswell of interest in your potato.
In my potato, it's a groundswell.
Could you please let the public know what is going on with the Maynard potatoes?
So they are growing really well, actually. So they're I planted one lot a week after the other, but because of the highly wet weather, they are now growing probably about 12 inches now. I've ridged up 2 lots. So the Maris Pear and the Charlotte are now ridged. Nicola are a bit behind, but I'll ridge them up after the weekend.
Can you promise us that there will be pictures on the Testing Peers Twitter when they have been unearthed?
Yeah. Oh, unearthed. Well, that'll be about Christmas time. So I was thinking about this earlier, actually, that because we did mention that we might be talking about the potatoes. It might come out for the Christmas episode. I might reveal some potatoes.
As an honorary bit, of course, we could rename the Testing Peers the Maris Pears just for the day.
Oh boy, Chris.
Have you grown anything else? Has anyone else grown anything in the garden?
Well, I've also got plums, Victoria plums. We had some lovely plum and apple crumble.
I think we've got a side business here, haven't we? the Testing Peers fruit and veg.
It's just David's garden, to be honest.
That's my garden, yeah.
We've got about 5 strawberries in our garden.
But still?
Yeah, they keep on coming back. So my youngest likes to go and show me where they are, and it's good. Check out the strawberries. And we had some carrots that were the size of like broad beans. They were quite uninspiring. You couldn't really cook them because they were so small. Bit crunchy, not bad. Bit like a cough sweet size, if you can sort of picture that for a carrot. So that's the only things I think that we've grown that's edible. Maybe some herbs.
We've just been busy puppy-proofing our garden, so got rid of anything that could possibly cause pain to the puppies or the children. Put chicken wire against the bottom of the fences, cleared any flower beds of thorny plants, laid it all to turf, put bark down in the beds, so we've got nothing now that can grow at the moment, so we're going to put some potted plants in once we get a chance. But yeah, it's all ready for the puppies, which come next weekend.
Have you been researching dog walking routes around your town?
Not for these puppies because they're very tiny to start with, so we won't be walking very far with them for the first couple of months. We've got some nice routes anyway, across fields near us, so it's fine.
More picture opportunities for our avid Twitter followers.
I've had a couple have already asked me to send lots of puppy pictures their way.
So Simon, are you going to start an Instagram account for your puppies?
I don't have Instagram, so maybe I wouldn't, but I might do a Twitter.
The Peers Puppies. Peers Puppies, and then David's you've got a dog, haven't you,
David?
David?
They're not your puppies. They're mine.
David's got a dog as well.
I've got a dog. He's not so much of a puppy anymore. He's an old man at 6.
Well, I'm trying to collective ownership. We can make a funny little picture of all the dogs that.
Actually, what we should have done for the
testing pups.
We could have exchanged our pictures for dogs for today.
Oh yeah, we've got to get better at that from the marketing side, haven't we? Sorry, I slipped up there.
Russell, have you been growing anything or doing anything in your in garden? It seems to be is kind of the theme right here.
I'd say has he grown his beard maybe, but.
The beard's definitely growing, definitely. But no, I'm not done much in the garden of late. I seem to be embracing everything you're talking about because I'm looking for a puppy too at the moment.
Oi.
Oh, yeah, very good.
So we'll see what happens.
Was it the Huskies that inspired that? Was it?
We've been talking about it for a long time. Just the lockdown had caused somewhat of a spike in prices.
Yes, it had.
And we didn't really want to pay a fortune for a dog. So
they're worth every penny, Russell.
I know they are. I just feel like it's kind of profiteering from an animal, and that doesn't fit right with me. But at the same time, supply and demand and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, we think now is the right time to do it while still working from home, etc.
This is an exciting development. I'm looking forward to this. And now we've got a running theme of potatoes and puppies that we can keep our listeners on tenterhooks finding out the information.
So when are you getting your puppy, Chris?
Never. My dearly beloved is incredibly terrified of dogs.
But that's the whole reason why you should get one. My daughter was petrified.
There's various battles in a marriage, David, that
Battles?
I would suggest you shouldn't really bother going to sort of win. You're not going to get very far in those things, and in this case, going for a dog would not be a successful pursuit.
Surely
for me.
You need to help your children feel comfortable around dogs. And not
They're
inherit.
very comfortable around dogs. If we go walking, they will say hello to every single possible dog that an owner will let them talk to. That isn't a problem.
They're just extroverts like you, Chris. I think that's more what it is.
I am not an extrovert. Oh, wait, no. Yeah. Enough about dogs and potatoes. They're awesome. But let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. So we have now been challenged to go into a little bit about what passion is and what do we mean by passion, and what if you are an unpassionate person.
I see passion as something that you are very interested in, have read around it, and you know how to do it, and you are an advocate for it.
Yeah, a passion for, I guess, if you're talking about passion in terms of CV or job, something that intrigues you, interests you, something that you're moved towards, something you want to get involved with, something you do things for. So my opening line for my CV is, I'm passionate about quality.
I've got a very similar line to
you. And I can honestly say that passion doesn't mean I'm running around like crazy going, quality, quality, quality. It means that I'm interested and I wish and want and I try and I do what I can to push that idea. So I'm passionate to others by promoting it. I'm passionate myself by doing a podcast on it, by learning about it, by those sorts of things. But passionate doesn't mean I'm kind of hugging and all that side of things. It's not emotionally passionate. It's invested passion, if that makes sense.
And it's also, I think, striving for that as well. So you are passionate to drive it forward in order to make sure that you are the best, like I say, advocate for that particular whatever thing you got the passion for.
Yeah. Investors is a term I like for it. You're invested in that area.
There's a term in when they're sort of talking about ADHD of hyperfocus, which is when you can't wave the hand in front of somebody because they're so like in the zone and stuff. No headphones, nothing. Like, so if my son's into something like building his Lego, he's hyper-focused because it's something that he really finds interesting, and he's going to put his all-consuming attention into that. There might be loads of things that he breezes through life. He does, half-assed or not really paying attention. Maybe it's because he doesn't really care about it. And I think passion and caring is a thing. And when you care about your job and you can show that you care by the actions that you do and the things that you say, I think that kind of can come across as a passion. The difference between how people perceive passion might be if you are a charismatic-y kind of outgoing person who's like, yeah, isn't this awesome? Let's do this sort of thing, rather than somebody who's just detail-oriented or just wants to get the job done right and just ticks those boxes. They might really care, but because they haven't got those obvious symbols, those little notes that tell you that they are, it's a two-way thing, because you might feel like you're really passionate about something, but people might not see it. Maybe it's like a charisma or a way of being that's when they see that there is something that you're really into, passionate about, there is a difference to your demeanor or the way you approach that particular thing.
I kind of agree.
Do you think you can be passionate about lots of things?
Yes.
I think this is it. It's not that emotion on the person that running around very smiley facey, happy. When we say passion, I don't think we mean that usually these days. It's not that crazy aunt who's passionately about trying to hug you and say
There's
nice things.
Passionate love as well. What does it mean to you when someone is passionate, Simon?
Certainly something that people are very vocal about. They can talk a lot about it. They're very enthusiastic about it. They live and breathe it almost. That for me strikes as passion. Something that they're, people that are passionate about their football team will talk about their football team. They'll go and be at their football matches. They'll follow them in every opportunity. That's how I see passion. people that are passionate about something tend to be quite intense about it, if that makes sense. There's certainly an intensity to when they talk about it. You can see the sort of enthusiasm and passion ooze out of them while they're talking about it. That for me kind of is a sign that there's passion involved.
So the comment on the blog was all about, also because obviously it's related to the CV, how do you then show that passion on a piece of paper?
That is much more tricky.
You say in your first line of your CV, you say, "I'm passionate about quality."
Is there any way of actually showing, should you go into more details?
Describe the actions that you do. So when I talk about being passionate, I talk about podcasts, getting involved in meetups, not just going to them, but presenting at them, going to conferences, persuading people about quality, teaching about quality, shifting organizational structures about quality. That's how I demonstrate my passion by my actions. It's not a list, I'm passionate because I did X, Y, and Z. I kind of say I'm passionate, then I hope the text itself explains the passion. But passion is an ambiguous word at best.
It is, and I think you're right. I think it's basically just explaining further. If you're passionate about something, then you can explain it and write about it and how it's affected your job, either in its current role or how you'd like to affect it in the future, basically, by showing what you've done to prove that passion for that particular subject.
So have you ever had something that you're passionate for that isn't just quality, like in your life, maybe as a child or like a particular interest you had? Was there something you would say that you had a passion for and that people could see that in you? Is there anything you could identify? Sports the thing. I mean, I went on there a bit of a sort of a tirade on football quite late on for a child, where I changed schools and all of a sudden everybody liked football in my school, whereas in my old school, which was bigger, I was kind of more into sort of the Marvel Universe type kind of things. Changing schools meant that if I wanted to have friends, I needed to get into football. So I kind of had to start buying into these things. And I didn't want to be fake about those things because I'm a terrible liar. So I picked little bits and bobs. I found things that I found interesting. And then I really deep dived into it. So I used to write the names of footballers down. I used to write down stats. I used to read the magazines religiously. I would start finding out more things and I would tell people about those things. I would worm some of those bits into my schoolwork. I would wear the scarf or the hat or the t-shirt, anything I could get away with. It kind of, that became me, and I sort of became stato to my friends.
That sounds so familiar. and I did exactly the same.
And the same thing happened with pro wrestling in my teens, for example. I went on a real deep dive on those sorts of things. In the days before you could Google stuff and find the answers really easily, there were fan pages on these things, and you could find out this pro wrestler was actually called this, and they went to those sorts of places and they did all these things. And you just it's interesting, and so I'm going to find out everything I can about that. So there you go. I've given you 2 examples.
Premier League from 93 to 96, I can probably tell you anything about it. That's the thing. I was so into it. I had the sticker books. I collected all the stickers. I had all the collector cards. I had watched Match of the Day every week without fail. The same with WWE, WWF at the time as well. I was quite sad in that respect. I knew all the wrestlers' names and everything else. Didn't dress up in the outfits, though, I'm afraid. Not for that one.
No, I didn't go that far either.
Very funny if you had.
My passion probably was when I was a lot younger, and I think lots of young boys were into it, is dinosaurs. Loved the dinosaurs and did a lot of research. My 3-year-old's into that now. And had books on them, really wanted all the things. And actually then I sort of relived it when the kids were young. We went to Dino Land and all various dinosaur parks and going to see them and being excited by Jurassic Park when it first came out all those many years ago. And
a movie.
Yeah. But it's interesting also now how, obviously being a scientist, how science has moved on and how things that were perceived in my youth many years ago are now very different. So I still have an interest, but I'm not quite so passionate about it as I once was.
I think you're right with that as well. I mean, dinosaurs is an interesting one because it is the one that most kids I know, most kids I know seem to have an interest in dinosaurs early on. I mean, my 3-year-old can name pretty much every dinosaur on the telly, and we watch his ridiculous amounts of Dino Dane or whatever it's called, and he knows all the names, and they're all his best friends, and it's very bizarre. But yeah, it's definitely something that young kids seem to really attach onto, and and like you say, visiting the parks now, it's very surreal going around and seeing all the dinosaurs that you used to know all the names of, and they're like, what's that one called again? I think you're right. There's some good examples of passions that you have as young children. I think it reflects itself differently in adults, though. It's difficult to explain, but you can tell someone's passionate about something by listening to them talk, by hearing the enthusiasm, they'll gesticulate more if it's something they're really passionate about, and it's all about that body language as well as the communication. And you can get those vibes on it, and especially if you manage to hit on the nugget during an interview when you're interviewing someone, and you manage to hit on the nugget of the passion, the field of passion that they have, you can be in the interview for a long time. You can really gauge how this person is when they're passionate about what they do, and that can be a real plus point for somebody.
You say that's a bit like when somebody's like face lights up when you start talking about something, say in a group. I mean, my son, like you talk about like certain planets. He's just been learning about those things. He's like, I've got facts to tell you about this.
But it's interesting how sometimes people's passions is like a wind-up toy. If you manage to get them in that right sort of sweet spot, they will suddenly just keep going. And sometimes in an interview situation, they can go down this track, and it's very then difficult to sort of steer them back to questions or information away from that particular passion. Because it's all very well having that passion and having a conversation, but you only have a finite time to a certain extent. It depends on when you are if you're in an interview panel, you may have a finite time. So being able to cover the breadth as well as the depth is quite tricky.
I'm guilty of talking too much about what I'm excited stuff in interviews. So most of my interviews go long when I'm the candidate. Because I start talking, so people go, "Oh, how was the interview?" And go, "I don't know, it lasted quite long. It's probably a good thing." On the whole, it probably wasn't. Everybody like, just bring it back, Chris. But yeah, I'm excited about stuff. So
as long as what your passion is relevant and that you don't go off on a tangent. Mind you, with you, Chris, it could well be on a tangent, but
I'll be like, wait a second. 1999 was the win for Sweden that was really important in Eurovision. I don't know what you're talking about. You can fact check me on that. That did happen. Russell, we haven't heard about what you had as a passion before quality was your number one passion.
I don't know. It's weird. Sports, as I said earlier, I was very keen, sort of playing, practicing sports. Beyond that, I couldn't tell you. I've lost that to the dawns of time.
I think it's interesting talking about passion and age, because I think there's a difference in in the examples we've given. So in early life with dinosaurs, for me, it was just a passion for me. And like what Chris was saying, his passion was to fit in, to be able to show his passion and be able to fit in with others. And it's interesting what Simon was saying, that I think the passion changes back to sort of like the childhood one. When you get to an adult, you're doing the passion bit for you, although having said that, you often have this sort of thought in the back of your mind is, how will this help me in my career, or how will this help me in whatever I'm doing? So I think that the progression through life changes in what we sort of decide is passionate.
It's difficult to decide what you're passionate about, though, isn't it? To actually make a conscious choice. It kind of still has to pique your interest.
Yes.
And so for me, in terms of testing, it was attending a conference and seeing this grander thing and seeing others really excited about it, not only about the work that they were doing, but also about other things, a much bigger picture than anything I'd ever seen. And that became quite infectious. But rather than just following people blindly into whatever they were saying, it just led me down like rabbit holes of blogs and talks and all these other things, and now here I am doing the same thing for other people to consume, whilst I'm obviously I don't know the answer to practically anything, but it's quite fun to sort of see. That was the week that David handed his notice in at our work, was kind of when I first really captured those things. So It's only like 7 years ago, David.
It is, yeah.
And I've been a tester for a flipping long time by that point before I wasn't passionate about my job.
I think we all were.
Do you think a passion can actually be a negative?
Yes.
Do you think
Yes.
sometimes do you think it can be blinkered? Do you think it can blind you from certain things? That actually means I'm passionate about this thing to the point where other things I just turn the volume down, or I'm oblivious to those things.
Passions can
Yes.
become obsessive, if that makes
Yes,
sense.
they can.
And anything obsessive, I would argue, is probably not great.
Depending on what you're doing.
I think all obsessive passions are probably a little bit not great, either for your mental health, physical health, or something else. I think there's probably a few edge cases there, but I think if you're truly, really obsessive, then I think it's bad.
I think also passion can possibly lead to a bit of arrogance, that you can feel that you're invincible and you know so much that no one, you don't actually necessarily listen to other people's ideas on a particular topic or subject.
Do you think too much passion and being told that you're an expert in a field can be therefore detrimental to you because you stop learning? But then I think if you stop learning, you probably lose your passion, surely, because when I'm passionate about something, I can't stop trying to learn about stuff.
It doesn't mean you learn the right things, though.
No,
It's true. Maybe obsessed with wrestling.
Yeah, I mean,
isn't very relevant anymore.
It's interesting because if you could say that your passion is testing, and you went to meetups, you read blogs, you watched online courses at a detriment to your day job because you were so obsessed with passionate reading about it that you actually weren't doing your job, that could have a negative impact. If you spend your evenings doing it, you're impacting your family time or whatever else. That could also be a negative impact. But equally, you could be, like you say, you could be learning the wrong things. The meetup could be on a topic that's to do with testing, but it's something that doesn't directly relate to your job or relate to what you're doing day to day. So although it might be interesting, it's not particularly useful in the moment. So therefore, that could necessarily be seen as a negative as well because it's not directly related to what I'm doing. There may be no way of, in your current role, being able to do that particular kind of testing. So if you do become passionate about that, you're going to then have the whole thing of, well, it's not my current job. I'm therefore not going to enjoy my job anymore. Blah, 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 and it spirals. So it can be. And I speak from experience of this because I did get to a point where I was constantly listening to podcasts about testing, watching videos, attending meetups, reading blogs, whatever, that my evenings, every evening without fail, would be taken up doing that, to the point my wife thought I was working every hour God sends, and I wasn't. I was working to a point, but then I was just reading or watching testing related stuff. And I don't feel like my knowledge necessarily went up a particular spike in that period. It was more of a plateau of, I was reading stuff, but stuff wasn't going in. But I felt like I had to keep reading because I had to keep learning. And I got myself into an obsession of, I need to learn, to the point, I had a stack of books, I had a stack of videos in a playlist on YouTube, I had a stack of podcasts that I was trying to get through a playlist of, and I just wasn't getting anywhere near them because I just couldn't actually listen to them. Although I'd play them, I wasn't hearing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's been times when I've been in the learning process and I realized there's so much to learn that's kind of made me obsessively try and get as much information.
Yeah.
But it's a bottomless pit.
Mm.
You start reading something and that gives you 6 different leads to then read 6 other things, and they give you another 6 leads, and it's kind of like an exponential growth, like the virus we've been currently seeing.
Yeah.
You can't win.
I think that's true. I mean, we were saying about our passion is testing. But testing is such a broad thing. There's also the other thing in that your understanding. So a good example is sort of exploratory testing, one-person exploratory testing, and you can read so many books on exploratory testing, but you can go down a channel where, in fact, you get blinkered and describe something that actually isn't exploratory testing, it's more ad hoc testing, and you can get down a rabbit hole that if you don't listen to people, like I was saying about the arrogance, then you can be convinced that you're right and try and convince people in your company that you're right, and then therefore people don't trust you anymore because they think that they realize that actually you're not listening to them and trying to change you, and so your passion is backfiring to a certain extent.
Yeah, when I thought passion's going kind of wrong, I thought of kind of the people that tried to persuade at all costs, say the people that were advocates of check everything for example, that preach it, or the people that say that, checking versus testing, that sort of stuff, who believe in it beyond any question, any doubt, any reasoning. Anyone that can't kind of see two sides of a coin to a degree, that passion is where passion's gone over the top, overflowed into kind of, I don't know, beliefs. I guess.
Ignorance. It goes into ignorance, really, doesn't it? It goes that it's what you believe or not at all. It
goes into sort of preaching and kind of your view is the right view, and sometimes passion can overrun into those areas. That isn't passion in my view.
No.
But that's where passion's kind of gone too far. I'm so passionate about my worldview or my opinion of testing that I will preach it versus try and teach it. And
Veer very close to politics and religion.
I was about to say the same thing. I've got Trump's name in my head now, and and the whole politics thing. Yeah,
you're right, but they even still, like, if you think linguistically, there's some people that have got an unfortunate name with grammar at the beginning, that preach about things being absolutely correct about the way things should and should not be said. And like there's the French language group, the Francophonie, where they've got very, very fixed ways that the language should be spoken, and it's this way or you're completely disrespectful of your entire people, and how dare you call the weekend le weekend. And by doing that, you're not being inclusive. And I think the thing that you really want to do with a passion is to be inclusive. You want to tell people all the really exciting stuff. But the minute you become exclusive, I think you're turning people off.
If you want to tell us about your passions, then get in touch with us at Testing Peers on Twitter, or contact us at testingpeers.com. We have a Patreon page, which we've mentioned on previous episodes, but if you want to help us fund this podcast, improve our equipment, make sure Chris has his supply of Jaffa cakes, then head over to patreon.com/testingpeers and check out the tiers and see which the different levels you can donate towards our cause. Thank you again for listening to this episode, and we look forward to speaking to you again soon. For now, it's goodbye from the Testing Peers.
Goodbye.